Hi students, this is Mrs. Myers with a lesson on similar figures. So in class we have been learning about how to determine whether shapes are similar or not. And so now that we've done that lesson with all the matching shapes, we're going to put this together with some vocabulary. So the first thing I want us to look at is this first page of our foldable. And it says similar figures. And similar figures have the same shape. And for similar figures, corresponding angles are the same. What word means the same? Not similar, but what? Congruent. Corresponding angles are congruent. And the other thing that's true is that corresponding sides are proportional. So we can write proportions to check to see if the side lengths are proportional. All right. So now we're going to take a look at this example in your foldable, and we're going to look at how we can compare congruent sides and congruent angles with two different similar shapes. So the first thing that you have here, I want you guys to recognize this at the top. This is a similarity statement. This statement tells you that triangle ABC is similar to triangle DEF. So on your paper somewhere, I want you to write this symbol means similar. So if you see that symbol in between two shapes, it means that the shapes are similar. So that's that symbol right there. So it's telling us, we know they're similar. We don't have to check to see if they're similar. It's telling us triangle ABC is similar to triangle DEF. The other thing I want you guys to recognize is that the similarity statement determines the angles that go together. What I mean by that is, if you take a look at ABC, A goes with D. It's going to be listed in the order of the angles that are congruent. So A goes with D. That means that they're congruent. B goes with E. And then finally, C over here is going to go with F. Okay? So it's showing which ones go together, which angles are congruent to one another. We'll go back to that later. Next, I want to show you how you can determine, I'm going to go ahead and erase that so we can see it, how we can determine whether the side lengths and the angles, how we can determine using symbols which ones go together. All right? So for angle A, what we're going to do to show that an angle is congruent is we're going to make a little curved line. So angle A goes with angle D. See how I made the little curved line on both of them? So because there's one line or one curved line at A and there's one curved line at D, that means they're congruent, so you can match them up. So down here, based on those symbols, we can determine that angle A is congruent to angle D. The symbols dictate which angles go together. So now for angle B, we don't want to put just one line because it's different. So what we're going to do for angle B is we're going to make two curved lines. And since angle B corresponds to angle E, we're also going to put two curved lines at angle E. So if we put one curved line at A and D and two curved lines at B and E to show that they're congruent and corresponding, how many lines do you think we would use for C and F? 3. So now I'm going to take different color and I'm going to show you. So C, so that we can keep up with the fact that it goes with F, I'm going to draw C with 3 curved lines and F with 3 curved lines. So now you can see how they line up. And again, I wanted to show you, oh, that goes with F. When you take your triangle similarity statement right here, if you're trying to figure out which angle goes with which and you're not sure, you can look at the order. So the A, B, C is going to go with D, E, F. Okay, do you see that? See how A goes with D, just like this? You see how B goes with E, just like this, when we put them in order? And C goes with F, just like that. So if you're not sure by looking at the shapes which angles correspond, you can just write the letters that represent the shapes beneath one another, and you can match up the corresponding side lengths, angle measurements as well as side length. So now we're going to move on to look at what we do if we're trying to figure out corresponding sides. So corresponding side length AB, you see, AB, I'm going to put a dash like this. I'm going to put a line through it. AB corresponds to DE, so I'm also going to put a line over here with DE, and then I'm going to list it on my note sheet to show that they correspond. I want you to also recognize from the order of the letters. You see how AB, underneath it is DE. So you could also match it up with the letters of the shape as they're given, because they're given in the order of congruence. All right, so BC now, I'm going to use a different color. BC, instead of one dash, I'm going to use two dashes. And make sure you're writing these symbols on your paper so you know how to use them. That's one of our objectives, is to be able to write the correct symbols to show corresponding angles and corresponding sides. So if BC has two lines, what other side length will also have two lines? EF or FE, we're going to go in this, or EF, yes. Okay, so you're going to put two lines there. So BC corresponds with EF. Now this does not mean that they're congruent. It just means that they correspond. So that when we write our proportions to figure out whether or not they're proportional, we can line up the side lengths together that go together. And then finally with C, instead of two lines, we're going to use three lines. So CA, I'm going to draw three lines there. I know it's kind of hard to see with what I already have. So you draw three lines to show CA is corresponding to FD. So both of them have the same number of side lengths. If you want to use different colors when you're doing this, I'm fine with you guys using pens. Especially erasable pens would be even better. But that would be a good way for you guys to be able to keep track of which side lengths are corresponding. So CA is going to go with FD. Questions so far? Now this one's kind of easy because the side lengths are right next to each other. I mean, the shapes are right next to each other and they're facing the same direction. But sometimes they're going to be rotated, and that's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you'll see. All right. Now inside here, we're going to look at lining up our side lengths to figure out the missing sides. So we're going to use, you can either use highlighters. You guys have highlighters at your desk to go along with me. I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to use the symbols to show the corresponding sides. So first I'm going to start with, it's telling us right here that PQRS, trapezoid PQRS, is similar to HIJK. I know that because this symbol here, remember, it means similar. So it's telling us right here that they are similar. So now I'm just going to figure out my corresponding sides. So SP, I'm going to start with one color. I'm going to use green for SP. SP, it says corresponds with KH. as PQ corresponds to what? HI. See that? So what I'm going to also do is use my dashes. So I know that SP goes with KH. And then I'm going to use 2 dashes for PQ corresponding to HJ. And so down here, if we want to keep in spirit with using the highlighters, we can even highlight our letters. SP is to KH as PQ is to, and we're going to fill in right here, HI. So all you're doing is figuring out the trapezoid on the right is similar to the one on the left. We know that's true already. We just need to learn how to match up the corresponding sides. So let's look at the next one, SR, and let's use a different color if you have it. Highlighter, so I'm going to use orange. So I'm going to say SR, and SR is going to go with KJ. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the third one. I'm going to use purple. RQ goes with JI, or QR. So SR, let's see what color we used for that. SR is going to be orange. And QR is going to be purple. So you might say, well, that's weird, because on this example, we had the green on the top and the blue on the bottom. But it's okay. We're now just going to have the one color on the left and the other color on the right. We're also going to use our tick marks. So SR, I'm going to use 3 lines. And then KJ, I'm going to use 3 lines as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish up with QR and IJ with 4. And I'll give you guys a second to catch up. I know it's a lot. We're labeling 2 different ways here. We're using the highlighters and the symbols. You're going to see the symbols in the materials, like when we review for the SOL, the symbols are going to be used, not necessarily the highlighters, but the highlighters will help us as we're getting more used to the symbols. So we're comparing SR and QR. So we're looking for the corresponding side. The one that's going to go on the bottom is the corresponding side to SR. And SR corresponds, you can see, if this is SR, it's going to go with KJ. So we're going to put KJ down here. And then it gives you the rest. QR goes with IJ. So again, we're having SR goes with KJ as QR goes with IJ. It's just corresponding sides. So now let's look at the next example on the bottom left, HI, and it looks like I used blue for HI. And then IJ, I used purple. And again, we have them on the top and the bottom, like the first example. So IJ is going to go with QR. It tells us right there they're both purple. And HI is going to correspond to PQ. Okay? You see that? HI corresponds to PQ. It's got the same color, and it also has 2 of the dash marks. So go ahead and try that last example. And if you're watching this as a video, I want you to try the example, but go ahead and pause the video and then unpause when you're ready to see the answer. All right, let's take a look at that last example. And I'm going to look at my picture, and I know that QR, let's see, QR I made purple, SP I made green. So green is on the bottom, and then I need purple on the right one on the top. So the purple is going to be KH goes with what? KH goes with IJ. Because it's purple is to purple as green is to green. Okay? Does anybody have any questions so far? Usually what you're going to be doing is finding one corresponding side that goes with one. You're not going to have to figure out all four at once. But right now, just to practice, I want us to get in the habit of using our symbols or using our highlighters to figure it out. All right, the next two examples are going to be what we do next week. Next week, we're going to take what we learned about corresponding sides, and we're going to use that to figure out missing side lengths. So this is what we'll be doing next week. For now, what I want you guys to do is grab the papers that are on your desk. There are papers like this. And I want you to do two of these examples today. I want you to use the symbols that we learned to show congruent angles and corresponding sides. You don't have to necessarily use the highlighter. You can just use the symbols if you like, or you can use both so that you can fill in these answers. So for example, if you know that A corresponds to D, you need to use the curved line to show corresponding angles. And you also need to give me the name of the shape. So this would be triangle ABC is similar to triangle DEF. So you're going to do this example, and then you're going to do the same thing with the trapezoid. I don't want you to do the third one because there's something weird about it, and I've got to figure out what's wrong with it. So I just want you to do the first and second examples, figuring them out, and then you can check within your groups. So I'm going to stop the video, so you can stop the video at this time and go ahead and fill those in. And then you can restart the video to check your answers. All right, let's go ahead and go over the first and second example. So the one thing that's really important is I want you guys to use the symbols to show the congruent angles and corresponding sides. So we already showed that A corresponds to D, B corresponds to E, and C would correspond to F. It's as simple as just putting in those symbols. And then for A, AB corresponds to DE, BC is going to correspond to EF, and then AC, I'm going to use 3 lines to represent the fact that it corresponds to DF. From here, it's easy to match it up. Now, I want to point something out again. You notice the way it's written. A, B, C corresponds to D, E, F. When it's written in the order of the letters, that can help you determine the congruence of the angles and the corresponding sides. So you can see here how A goes with what? D, B goes with E, and C goes with F. So when they're turned in different directions, sometimes it's hard to tell which angles go with which or which sides go with which, but you can use the letters that they give you in the example to figure it out. Same thing with the side length. So if you have, I'm going to write it again over here, A, B, C, D, E, F, So if you're looking for the side length that corresponds to AB, you can do this. AB goes with what? DE. You see that? The letters are going to help you determine it if you can't tell by looking at the shape. So AB goes with DE. And if you look over here, if you're trying to figure out BC, BC goes with what? EF. See, it's the letters. If you line them up, you can tell. That's a shortcut or a helpful suggestion for when you're not sure by looking at the shapes. So then AC, look at this. So then AC, even though they're not right next to each other, you have AC is going to go with what? DF. DF. Does that make sense? You just look at the order of the letters for the angles as well as the sides. So back to the angles, A corresponds to D, B corresponds to E. We can look at the shape or look at the letters. And then C corresponds to F. Questions on that? Make sense? 1 through 5. 1, I have no idea what we're doing. I feel like I'm still sleeping. And 5, this makes sense. We're just matching up sides. Okay, a lot of 3s and 4s. Good. All right, nice. All right, let's look at the trapezoids. Same thing. Now, this time it doesn't tell us the letters, so we're going to determine that together. So what I'm going to use are my symbols. I'm going to take G. I know G goes with what? G corresponds to what? K. So I'm going to write my G over here and my K over here. All right, and then I'm going to go with H. H corresponds to what? L. So H goes with L. And then J goes with N. J goes with N. And if you wrote the letters in a different order, that's okay. They just need to line up accordingly with the congruent angles on the other one. So the last letter we have is I. So we're going to use 4 curved lines. I corresponds to, it's kind of hard to put that in there, but it corresponds to what? M. So again, you can line these up. G, H, J, I is similar to K, L, N, M. If you had I, J, and M, N, that's okay, because it's still going to be the correct order. So check it out. Because we did it that way, you can see that angle G goes with angle K. G goes with K. Angle H corresponds to what? H goes with L. Angle L. I goes with M. And again, the order's a little different, but that's okay. And then lastly, J corresponds to N. See that? And then same thing with the side lengths. You see GH. GH is going to go with KL. You can see it in the picture. GH goes with KL, or you can look at the order of the letters. GI we see is going to be 2 dashes. GI goes with KM. And GI, look, GI goes with KM. IJ goes with what? IJ, 1, 2, 3, goes with MN. 1, 2, 3. MN. And again, you're not always going to have all these symbols on every single shape. You might just be looking for 1 or 2 corresponding side lengths. I know it's a lot. Looks kind of messy. But we're just learning how to use it for all of the side lengths and all the angles. And then the last one, what does HI correspond to? HI corresponds to what? HI. Now this was a little tricky. This was weird. Because HI would actually be this here. HI would correspond to what? LM. You see how that? There's not even a line there, but you could draw it. HI corresponds to LM. And if you look at the example up here, HI corresponds to LM. Any questions on this? Okay, I'm not sure we're going to have time to glue this in. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the video today, and we'll continue the lesson on Monday by using this lesson to learn how to determine missing side lengths of similar figures.